Welcome back to part 2. If you missed part 1, then go check it out after this video, and if you want to make sure you don't miss part 3, then subscribe to Blind Focus with Rob Sears and hit notifications, the little icon, the little bell. It will tell you when part 3 has gone up, so don't miss out. Now that's out of the way, we're going to talk about biking. So as a kid, growing up in a sort of smallish village, literally if I was going somewhere, I was either biking or running. Used to cycle everywhere, loved being out on the bike, and that sustained all the way through childhood until I moved away to university. Because I knew I was never going to be able to drive, the bike became my way to commute, get to work, be independent, and give me a little bit of freedom. And it's strange because it shows the progression of my sight loss that I was able to cycle in the dark. I'd have to have bright lights, but I was able to follow yellow lines and street lights, and I could actually safely cycle in the dark. Obviously now I can't even walk in the dark without Lauren being there. So yeah, it's massively progressed. So I used to be able to go everywhere on the bike, no problem at all. Very few accidents, never used to fall off. So yeah, I loved it. So as I got older, I started finding that I was maybe having a few more accidents than I used to when I was younger. So I used to, maybe hit a curb and kind of slide off the bike, or I'd cycle into, lampposts or fence posts or whatever it was. Sometimes other people coming the other way, little bollards, like it just became a little bit hazardous. So I used to cycle within myself. So when the opportunity for triathlon first came along, obviously I knew I was going to be fine on the bike. I knew I'd be fit enough and strong enough to be good on the bike, but it was just a case of, did I trust myself and did I trust my eyesight enough? We know that my first triathlon was the London Triathlon, and to do that I thought I need to get myself a road bike. So I'd always ridden mountain bikes, and I was getting a bit scared of doing that, even because going downhill, when you can't really see what's at the bottom and the terrain is a bit weird, I thought, no, get a road bike, just take it easy on a road bike, and that was it. So I got onto eBay, had a little look at some second-hand bikes, because you're always told with triathlon that you can plunge so much money into the sport, and for your first one, just until you know whether you like it, it's best to kind of get a second-hand or borrow one. I'm pretty tall, so I couldn't borrow, so I bought my first road bike second-hand, Specialized. It's bright red, called it Scarlet. Scarlet was my loyal steed. She got me through a lot of training, a lot of races, and kept me safe. We had quite a good relationship with each other. She kept me safe and I looked after her. Got through London Triathlon, and that was an ordeal on the bike all of itself. I didn't realise, because it was my first one and I didn't really do my sort of course check. There's a tunnel that you have to go through, Links Tunnel, I think it's called in London. It's basically, I'd say, about a 200-metre tunnel, it felt like anyway. So you are racing against other people and you have to go through a dark tunnel. Now obviously my condition, retinitis pigmentosa, means that night blindness is one of the major things that affects us. So going into a tunnel on a road bike, cycling fast, following other people through a tunnel was pretty hairy. I know my mum wasn't happy about me having to do it, and it wasn't just once, like I say, it was out back, so it's 4 times. I was fine. I just tried to follow the yellow lines, as best I could, because you're not allowed to cycle in the middle. So the white lines is kind of your middle point, yellow lines on the side. As long as you're just outside them, you know you're going to be fine. So I followed them as much as I could, but my speed obviously had to decrease quite a lot. And one of the memories I have from that first triathlon is that I thought I was cycling pretty fast, and I remember being overtaken by a man dressed up as a chicken, which is funny because at the time I was really peed off that he'd overtaken me. But when I was watching back the highlights of that race, obviously the cameras are going to follow the man in the chicken suit, so there was a bit where I was in the camera for like a second on the official London Triathlon video, so that was quite cool. So obviously I wasn't happy about being passed by a man on a chicken suit. In a chicken suit on a bike. It's just, yeah, it's fun. So that was kind of my first taste of racing on a road bike on my own. I knew that I couldn't push it as hard as I wanted to because I would probably get myself in an accident. So I never felt like I got my full potential on the bike, but I was happy. And me and Scarlett ended up doing a lot of races, and me and my dad rode the French Alps. We've always been, you know, fascinated by the Tour de France and how they do it. So to actually ride the Alps while I was still able to see and ride by myself, and you know, drag my dad along for some of it. He dragged me along for a lot of it, but that was quite cool. Now, we absolutely loved the French Alps, but wherever there were mountains, there were lots of tunnels, and obviously again, tunnels just became difficult. So we went over there with a group of riders, and we ended up pretty much doing our own thing, me and Dad. But we had a great time, and the photos are just immense. So they're not photoshopped if and when you see them up in this video. So another thing about triathlon that people tell you is that you can spend a ton of money upgrading kit. And obviously in the quest for a bit more speed, wheels got upgraded and group set got upgraded, new chains. You know, we spent a fair amount of money, me and Scarlett, getting her all pimped up. So she was riding really, really well, really, really quick, but that created its own problems because the faster she could go and the faster I wanted to ride, the more dangerous it became. And you know, sadly, sort of 7 years later at Weymouth, as we know, it was quite a hairy experience. Didn't come off, but wobbled a few times, and just remembered thinking how much I hated the bike at that point, because you know, if you swim and you want to stop, as long as you're not out in the deep ocean, you can swim on your back and get yourself back. If you want to stop when you're running, you just stop and walk. But on the bike, when you're hurtling along at 20-25 miles an hour, you know, sometimes even more, it's quite frightening, and you come off the bike at that speed, it's going to hurt. So there's an element of danger with the bike, and obviously as a visually impaired person, you know, now a severely sight impaired person, safety has to come first. So yeah, Scarlett's days were numbered, unfortunately. She spent the next few years being locked up in the utility room. So when I moved to Norwich in 2016, I bought a watt bike, and the idea was that I'd use that to test my clients and the people I was coaching. And when lockdown happened and I was forced to sort of close the studio down, the watt bikes made their way back to the house. So this was great for me for training, and it was actually during a watt bike session in lockdown that I was sort of looking at Scarlett. And when you're sitting on a watt bike or any indoor bike for an amount of time, your mind wanders and you start thinking about stuff. And I was thinking about how much I missed racing and how I just wanted to get back out there. But I knew I couldn't cycle on Scarlett. So decided to look at getting a tandem road bike. Unfortunately, because of my height being sort of up 6'4", it made getting a tandem bike very tricky just off the peg, because basically the tall rider is meant to be at the front and the shorter rider is meant to be at the back. Now, if I'm 6'4", that means I need someone above 6'4" to get in front of me on the bike, which, let's face it, is probably not gonna happen. Especially when I was thinking that I would team up with Lauren, and Lauren is not 6 foot. She is quite tall, but she isn't that tall. So we had to really research it, and I found a company in the UK who ship in custom build tandem racing bikes from the States. So I put Scarlett up for sale and sold her to a friend of Lauren's. So she was in very good hands. But I was sad to see her go, but she had to go to allow me to make room for the tandem. Because of the lockdown, there were no bike parts anywhere in the world. It's really hard to get the parts. So it took about 4 months before the bike had all the bits that it needed. But yeah, so Lenny, the Land Escape, turned up, and it was quite an exciting time. My one condition about getting a tandem road bike was that when I turned up to events, I wanted it to look like a kick-ass bike. I didn't want it to look like, oh, that's cute, you sort of turn up on that old thing. I wanted it to look like, we're serious about racing hard, because I was, although I wasn't quick at that point, I'd like to think of myself as a good athlete. So I wanted a piece of kit that people would respect, whether I can see or not. Lenny was a real turning point in my training and racing, because I'd gone from having to follow behind Lauren, me on my bike, her on her bike, to we were actually on the same machine, so we're working together. And that was really cool, but it was scary, like really scary. Not because I didn't trust her, but when you've been used to riding a bike and having your own gears and your own brakes, suddenly sitting on the back of a machine that can go quite fast with no gears and no brakes and all of the controllers at the front of the bike, it's a little scary. It took me a while to be able to not try and control the bike. Literally, my job is just to sit still on the back and pedal. But it's taken a long time to get there. So unfortunately, me and Lauren had many training sessions which ended in tears, mainly Lauren crying. We had training sessions where we just were like, no, we just spent a lot of money on this bike and it's just not gonna work out. We had sessions where we just wanted to get on the bike and get going. I remember one session that we cycled at a supermarket in a car park, home-based car park. Really quiet, no one there. And if anyone working at that particular store did check the CCTV, they would have just seen us trying just to cycle in a straight line for about an hour. It was an absolute nightmare. She hated it because of the pressure. I obviously felt her stress, and we didn't go well as a team in the early days on the tandem. We did a few events and a few little things, and we did one triathlon, but yeah, there was just a feeling that it probably wasn't going to work out very well. But training wise, Lenny just reinvigorated me. Obviously, I had to start getting fit and strong on the bike again after taking it really easy for about 4 years. So the watt bike became a real important part of training. This year in particular, I'm racing short triathlons, so the bike leg on my racing is anywhere between 10 and 20 kilometers. So it's all about speed, it's all about power. Again, it's all about gym work. So there's been a lot more strength work going into my training at the moment, which has been good. And we're really working hard to push the speed up on the tandem. So the one thing that I've learned from my time with the paratriathlon community is that it really doesn't matter what your ability level is like and what you struggle with. There is always a way to overcome it. So for the blind and visually impaired, we cycle on tandem bikes. For people who struggle with limbs, so no arms, no legs, there's trikes, there's three-wheelers, there's hand cycles. There's just a whole array of options for people to cycle on. So it doesn't mean that if you can't cycle by yourself, you can't do a sport or get active and get cycling. You absolutely can, but you just need to do a bit of research and find the best way for you to get on your bike. So that is it. That is the part 2 bike video. Like I said, if you haven't seen number 1, the swim, then go check that out. I'll probably tag it in the video somewhere in the corner. And also part 3 is coming very soon, which is where we talk about the running and some of the training that I'm doing at the moment. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully it's given you a little bit of an insight into how a severely sight impaired or blind person can still get on the bike and be competitive.